Rebranding is way more than your colors and your logos, y'all. Since we here, y'all, do y'all know what branding is? Do you feel like you can describe what branding is? That's like the very first part of all of this. So, having this whole concept of like branding and like the physical, the visual sides of it. And I think that's definitely what people think about. They think about like the packaging, the designs, the colors, the logos. I see OVB, you be listening, OB. It's the heart. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. The brand is the heart of what you do. And so, what I always tell people, especially when they're struggling and feeling like they're not talking to the right people, is usually because you started your business and maybe you knew what you wanted to do, you knew what you were good at, but you really didn't know who you could help, who you're supposed to serve with what you're doing. And you also maybe either lost sight of it or really didn't think about where you wanted to take this. Okay. And the thing about establishing a brand, y'all, that I don't think that we think about is that establishing a brand takes faith. It takes faith. And the reason why it takes faith to brand is because you are establishing something that does not exist just yet. You are saying, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to see happen. And this is the work that I'm going to do to make it work. Right. And the reason why I say that it takes faith outside of that is because it takes a lot of time to build a brand. Okay. It takes a lot of time. And I think about the journey that I went through when I started to rebrand myself, right? When I started to really come into my brand. And I like to tell people that it wasn't necessarily a rebrand for me, but for all intents and purposes, I was changing like my title, I was changing what I wanted to do as far as business goes. And so there was a certain aspect to it where it was definitely rebranding, right? But the other aspect to that is that I was really starting to learn and understand who I was coming into my identity, owning my identity, learning like the things that I have, the gifts, the talents, the skills that I have, and then learning how to present them in a way where it felt real. And the thing about branding, y'all, is that it is something that it really does not happen overnight. And I know a lot of times people say it takes time, it doesn't happen overnight, but it can be one of the most frustrating processes that you will ever have to go through when it comes to building your business because there is no blueprint for your brand. Every brand is unique, every brand is different. There are certain elements to building a brand that are, just common knowledge, right? Like having a vision, having the logos or fonts, knowing who your customers are. Like those are the certain aspects and elements to a brand that are consistent. But when it comes to actually building it and making it you, there isn't anything set in stone that tells you how to be you. Think about it. There is nothing that tells you how to exactly be you. That's a journey that you have to go on to discover and learn and so when I'm talking to people about their brand and when I'm listening to what they're saying, sometimes people get frustrated because they feel like it's taking so long. I feel like I'm doing something wrong. And then all of a sudden you start switching gears. You're like, hold up, maybe I need to do this because this wasn't working. This is part of the learning. This is part of the understanding. This is the part of growing. This is a part of the process of me establishing my brand. And so I really been thinking about that heavy because I'm one of those people, and y'all let me know if this is you too. Y'all be honest with me. Okay. Don't leave me out here by myself. But I am one of those people where if I don't see results quickly, I'm doing something else. Like, I'm gonna leave. Clearly, I've made a huge mistake and I just need to go ahead and run back to whatever I was doing. Like, when you're in it, you start to almost lose concept of time. You start to forget, where you started or how long you've been doing it. Like this, like I'll take this challenge that we're doing, for example. Hey, Abby, we are doing this challenge, this 21-day live challenge. And so, y'all, after the first like 4 or 5 days of this challenge, I was sitting here and I was like, how long have I been doing this challenge? Like, it's starting to feel like I've been doing this. I could have sworn I was doing this for at least a week. And then it was like day 4. It was day 4. India, I feel like you laughing because you feel me on this. You start to really think about it and you like, dang, I think it's day 10 now, right? We're almost halfway through it. But like when you start to do something different, when you start to establish it, yeah, finding your brand, and when you start to quantify it and you look at how long it takes, we're on day 11. And so when you think about like how much time it really takes to build it and establish it, it gets warped for us because we're used to like how we're used to like we've had these ideas for a long time. We're used to us. The things that we're trying to build, the things that we want to do, it feels longer to us because we've had these dreams and these visions and these plans for so long. But when we actually put into perspective how long we've been talking about these things and how long we have been like moving in it consistently, you start to see, wow, no, it hasn't really been that long. And in the grand scheme of things, it has not been that long. I still have work to do. And so that's why I say that building your brand takes faith, because there's so much time. And the thing that I really want y'all to know is that I'm not saying that you have to put in years of work before you ever see anything from it. Okay. That's not what I'm saying. And what I am saying though is that it does take time to establish it. Sometimes you have to readjust. There are going to be things in between that time frame that are going to be wins. You are going to start to get clients or customers, sell products. You are going to have breakthrough moments where people tell you that something that you did or said helped them. You are going to have those moments where you have videos that go viral or videos that do really well. And so those are the things that you have to hold on to and take those as like your indicators and your markers that you're moving in the right direction, while also understanding that you are still establishing yourself. You're still working towards something, because really, y'all, if you think about even like the length of time that some of our favorite companies have been in business, they've been around for decades. We see the ones where it feels like they like grew overnight and they had all of this success, but even those people started off with a vision and a dream, and maybe this particular business took off quickly, but we don't know what they were doing way before this business. And so I that's something that I really want people to take into account when it comes to our brand and it comes to establishing it, giving it time to be established, working through the steps and the framework that it takes in order to establish your brand. And if you are in a place where you are starting to recognize that, hey, I've been doing this for a few months now and I'm not really getting engagement, I've been posting consistently, I feel like I've been talking to the right people, or I'm really not seeing any movement. I'm not seeing any indicators that I'm moving in the right direction. Truly not seeing any indicators, because sometimes we have an idea of what we want to see. When we talk about our brand and like thinking, do I need to rebrand? You have to first know what it is that you want to do. Okay. And that's the first thing that I always tell anybody. If you work with me one on one, or if you're a part of Getting Unshy, one of the first things that we work on is the vision. Y'all know what I'm talking about? The first thing that we work on is vision, establishing a vision and understanding where we want to go and where we want to take this thing, right? Before I can help you do anything with marketing or anything with branding yourself, I need to know what you are working towards, because that's that faith piece. And so that's the first one of the first things is, do you have a vision? And the vision has to be something that scares you, and it has to go way beyond I'm just trying to make money. If that's on the only part of your vision that you have, you're going to always struggle and you're going to be acting brand new every month, because in your mind you are trying to look for what's going to get me the revenue the quickest, right? Not what's going to establish me and help me to really build this thing that I want. Okay, so that's one of the first things that you have to do. Now, the second thing, once you have that vision, once you understand that, is knowing what stories you're telling. You have to know how to tell the right stories. You have to know what to talk about, what to share with people, what to speak on that's relevant to the brand you are establishing. What are the parts of your story? What are the parts of your life that speak to your people? What are the things that you have gone through, that you have overcome, that you can share with them to signify to them, oh, this is my person. This is my community. These are my people. That's the product that I need. That's the service that I need. You have to know what types of stories to tell. Okay. Then after that's when you start getting into the content. And that's the part where we've done all of this work before we even talk about content. But for a lot of us, we just jump straight into the content. We just jump straight in and we get all these tips and tricks from other people, but we don't actually have a vision and a plan for how to use them. Like everybody's information, everybody's advice is not going to be for you, and you will know what advice to take and which ones are not relevant based off of you understanding who you are and what you are trying to accomplish with your brand. Knowing how to tell stories, you knowing what to talk about that's relevant, you learning how to share with people, being vulnerable, being transparent, being entertaining, being informative, knowing what to talk about. Those are the kinds of things that are necessary for a brand in general. Like not just for TikTok, not just for content, but knowing how to tell stories, knowing how to talk about things that are that's interesting to people. So you need to have a vision, and you're building your brand, you need to have a vision. What are you trying to build with it? What's your long term? What you trying to accomplish with this? What are you trying to build with this? The next thing is that you need to know how to tell stories. Like it's just like a non-negotiable at this point. You have to know what kind of stories to tell. Okay. Now the next thing is our content. So now we're going to get into the content. And so one of the questions that Cardi asked over on TikTok is what are the indicators to let you know that you are moving in the right direction? Okay. And so I'm going to say this, there are a lot of things that can happen that will let you know that you're moving in the right direction. The biggest struggle for people is accepting that they are an indicator, even if it is not as big or as grand or at the level that you feel like it should be. Okay. Like you got to accept that they are indicators. So, some of the things that let you know that you are moving in the right direction. First thing is that you have some kind of engagement on your content. And we're talking about content, right? And this is not to say that it has to be hundreds of comments or even dozens of comments, but if you have content where people are like commenting on it, they're asking questions or they're saying this is relatable or it's something that it just gets their attention. Comments are a really good indicator that your content is hitting the right point. And again, I really want y'all to be open to the possibility that this won't be a whole bunch of comments. Some of my most successful topics, I didn't have more than maybe 30 comments. And those out of those 30, it was probably 15 of them was me responding to people. But I knew that because people were really engaging with it, that it was something that was worth talking about, and that let me know that this is a topic or this is a direction that people are interested in, they want to know more about. This is something that really caught their attention. And so a video that did that for me that I could talk about is when I was on the documentary. Like that seems to be between the documentary and when I was interviewed on the TV show. That's the one where people are like, "Oh my goodness, how did you do that? You were on TV, you did this, you did that." And so those are the things that I recognize are not only like they make an impact to people, like it intrigues people, but it's also something that I could continue to talk about. And it still is in alignment with what I do already with branding, which means that, okay, I'm moving in the right direction. Or let's say, for instance, you put something out like on your stories and people respond to it and they ask you questions. Do people come to you for certain things? One of the things that used to bother me so much, oh, It used to bother me so much because it felt so irrelevant. But one of the things that people would always ask me, they would always ask me about like how to make content. People would always ask me content questions. They would ask me stuff about YouTube. They would ask me stuff about Instagram. They would ask me stuff about what types of equipment to use. They would ask what mic am I using. They would ask what camera am I using? How do I edit this? What kind of software do I use? I felt like I was always the person being asked, and I was making fashion content. And so I was like, why do y'all keep asking me about this? Do you care about my outfit? That's all I care about. Do you care about my outfit or not? And so that was one of those things where I started to recognize that okay, this is something that people, not only are they like looking to me and asking me questions about this, they also trust me in this area. They trust me with these topics. And so that can let you know that you are moving in the right direction, or it can let you know that maybe you need to make some adjustments, especially if people are asking you about is not related to what you do already. But if people are asking you questions that are related to what you do, if they come to you and they see you as some kind of authority in a certain space, that lets you know that you are moving in the right direction. That's another indicator. If people tell you that there's something that you put out there, that your content or your story inspires them, that it resonates with them, that it encouraged them, that it informed them, those are indicators that you are moving in the right direction. Okay. And then some of the other ones that are even more concrete is that if people are asking to work with you, which was one that I always ignored, which thinking about it, you're like, Jada, why would you do that if your goal is to get clients and make money? But I didn't feel like I was good enough to help people. And so I would hear you and I would feel like you should probably go talk to somebody else. Because I was so afraid of messing things up. I was like terrified of messing things up or not actually being good at it, and that was one of those things that I would reject. That would be one of those things that I would reject because I felt like it wasn't I wasn't good enough. It wasn't enough. I didn't feel like I was ready. I didn't feel like it was right. I was still second guessing it, even though I was literally being given the evidence that I can help people with this. This is something that people need from me. And so those are a few of the things that I want y'all to start to think about as indicators that you are moving in the right direction. Now, some of the ones that are not external but are internal. Okay. Some of the things that are internal are is how you feel when you are doing this. Okay? How do you feel when you are doing this? And this is one of the ones that is, I would say, is the most necessary because this speaks to you having the heart to keep going, even when it doesn't feel like things are working. And so I knew that no matter what industry I'm in, or no matter what direction I'm going in, I am passionate about helping people to see that they can be themselves, that they can accept who they are, and that they can still shine, that they can still be bold, that they can still feel good about the things, the quirks and the differences that they may have that's different than the world, but it makes them who they are. And I can do that whether it's through fashion, I can do that with content, I can do that with business, I could do that with anything because that's just a part of who I am. And so that passion, that drive is enough for me to get up and keep doing this, even when I don't feel like it's working or I feel like I'm not moving in the right direction or doing the right things. Right. And so you really have to think about, is this something that I feel a conviction for? And what aspect of what you're doing do you feel convicted for? I was looking at someone who is an esthetician, right? And so I know some of the things that are a big motivating factor for people who are estheticians is that they really want people to feel confident in their skin. They want people to know, they want people to have the tools and access to the things that can help them feel beautiful and feel confident and feel like they're empowered to show up and be themselves. There may be estheticians who they want people to feel comfortable dealing with acne. Maybe they've been struggling with acne or skin issues all their life. And so they want them to have that confidence again, to know that not only are they beautiful, not only are they still worthy and valuable, but here is what you can do differently so that you can get some different results, right? Those are the things that might motivate them or drive them. Even one of my favorite estheticians is Beautyologist. That's her name, has her handle. And I love that her mission is to educate Black people on proper skincare, because it is an industry that has is known for keeping us out of it. We don't have as much access to information. We don't have as much access to skincare. We don't even have the access to other Black estheticians or skincare professionals if that's what we desire. Like, there are so many limitations that we have. And so one of the things that motivated her when it came to establishing her brand is that was what she was inspired to do. And she brought her passion and coupled it with her skills and made content that promoted her business, but also ultimately helped her to develop a brand where she doesn't even have to do one-on-one esthetician work anymore. And so it has to be something that is deep down a passion for you. You have to be able to say, I know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing, even if it doesn't feel like people are noticing me right now, even if it doesn't feel like people are acknowledging it right now, because everything else, all the external stuff, those are things that can be tweaked. Those are things that can be adjusted. Those are things that can be changed, whether it's the products, your content, the services, how you present it. Maybe you started something that didn't have the proper time to market it. Or maybe you presented something to people that they're not really interested in. Like, they don't really want this. They're not really looking for this. Or maybe you are a person where you are off and on, which was my problem when it came to my branding and when it came to my content, is that sometimes I felt like doing it and sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I would show up and then I wouldn't. I'll be doing this program, then I'm going to stop. I'll be doing this service, now I'm not doing it no more. And I never really gave things enough time, enough of an opportunity to really grow and develop. And when things didn't work out the way I wanted them to, or when I didn't feel like I was getting results, I stopped. And so I think I told y'all this yesterday, but I'm gonna tell you again since I'm recording this over here, is that this is the first year where I really gave my vision and my dreams a chance to develop, a chance to grow. And I wasn't hiding behind my content. I wasn't hiding behind having fun, because I know how to make content. I know how to make stuff that's relatable. I know how to edit videos to make them look good. Y'all see, I got all the equipment and the tech stuff to make a podcast or start a YouTube or just to do a lot of stuff. I have all of the tools to make good content, but what I was missing was the courage to show up consistently and really build this thing and not run away from it. And so there would be some times where I would really not feel like talking about anything. I didn't want to promote what I was doing. I didn't want to come on here and talk about my business because I felt discouraged, because I felt like people weren't listening, because I felt like people would say they were interested, but then they never really bought anything from me. Or they say they wanted this, but then they didn't sign up for what I put out there. You got to have a passion for what you do, because the external validation is not going to always be there. And even if the external validation is there, you may not accept it or recognize it because you don't feel like it's enough. You don't feel like it's good enough. Are y'all getting what I'm saying? Something that helps me, which sometimes is scary, but also it can give me a lot of good information, is that I look at the analytics. I look at my numbers. I look at what videos are trending. I look at how many shares I get in an hour. Like, that's something that I'm like obsessed with. That it's probably not healthy, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But I look at the numbers. And so one of the things that I was inspired by today, I posted a video, and I posted the video in response to a video that I posted yesterday talking about, is it time for you to rebrand? And so when I posted the response, first of all, y'all, I felt like I ate in that video. Okay. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I felt like I ate. And it was one of those things where it was like, even if that video only got 100 views, I feel like I really did my job with it. And so the video ended up getting maybe 5 saves in like the first hour. Not a lot at all. At all. And I think at this point, like at this present time, what I remember, it maybe has about like 10 comments, maybe 15 comments. And a lot of those comments are me responding to the people in there. The video itself, are y'all ready for the view count? The last time I looked at that video, it had a whopping 236 views. It has 236 views. And I am so proud of it. Like, I'm genuinely proud of that video. I like that video so much, I went back and watched it a few times because I was like, this is just so good. And I really feel like I help people. And the comments that I did get was so encouraging to me. I'm gonna save this, or I got to make sure that I do this, or someone talking about their journey with rebranding or their frustrations, right? Those are all things that are valuable, where me recognizing like the small wins comes in. And so I really want y'all to get into a habit of not discounting the small things. And I feel like I'm gonna have to keep saying this, and that's okay. That's okay. That's perfectly fine. But you really cannot discount the small things. And I really want you to be honest and say, is it really that I'm not seeing any results? I'm not seeing any indicators, or am I just disappointed with them? Am I just feeling like it's not enough? Because after a certain point, it really is one of those things where you just got to know that this is what I love to do. And if this is not working, then I'm going to figure something else out. Yeah, and that's fine. I understand. Listen, I understand. And I want y'all to know that I can be saying this today, and tomorrow I can feel like I'm not doing nothing. It's just how it is sometimes. That's just and that's natural. That's normal. But the thing that I want you to know is that it sometimes we just have to remind ourselves. We have to give ourselves a little bit of encouragement. We got to go and give ourselves a little bit of a reminder. You have to go through and look at it. I know for me, one of the things that I do, like I told you, I look at my analytics, but sometimes I go and I look at the videos that are still doing well. What are people still looking at? What are people still watching? What do they still like? And sometimes I'll have videos that are still getting views that I posted weeks ago or months ago. That's still encouraging. That's still inspiring. Maybe my newest stuff ain't getting no love, but something is. And I think that's what I want everybody to do that. Everybody that's listening to this, whether it's right now or whether you're listening to it later, I want you to go and look at your analytics. Look at your analytics, look at your numbers, see what videos people are still interested in. What videos are still trending for you? What videos got the most comments? What videos, I'll say the most views, but again, views don't really mean that much to me because of how these algorithms are. But what are some of the videos that got the most engagement? What's still getting the engagement? What are some things that people said to you in the past? Now, there are some technical things that we can do, but the thing that I see that people really need help with more than anything is two things. The first thing is that people are not sharing their story enough. Like, you're not sharing your story enough. And you're creating content that is just not relevant to your people. Like, it's just not relevant. That's like the first thing. That's the more practical thing. The second most practical thing is that you don't post as consistently as you think you do. You're not as consistent as you think you are. And if you have got to a place where you are more consistent, you probably have not been doing it for a long enough time for you to see results. And this is like a little bit of tough love, but it's because I really want y'all to understand that it takes time. Okay. It takes time. I Let me see. I had, especially last year, y'all. This year was so much better. It was so much better. But last year, I think I was talking about this, how I would literally go like weeks where I maybe only posted like once a week on any platform. And I still had the nerve to be upset because I felt like people weren't supporting me and I wasn't doing a good enough job and nobody liked what I had to say. And I needed to just quit because it wasn't good enough. I was not consistent. And it was hard for me to admit that because I could think of all the reasons why. And life happens. It definitely happens. And I don't want anybody to feel like this is to put you down when things get tough. Like when you're going through things, I get it. But the reality of it is that even in the midst of our life happening, things are going to be sacrificed, right? Things might be sacrificed. And so if you're in a time in your life, a particularly tough time in your life, and you haven't established yourself yet, like if you haven't really given yourself enough time to be consistent, to show up and really build and establish a community, and you take a break, it is going to impact your business. It's going to impact your platform. And that's just the reality of it, right? Now, again, you may need it, but sometimes it's just a sacrifice. Of course, sis. It is what it is. You didn't have the capacity to do both. You just didn't have that right now. And so you have to remember that if you're not starting over from scratch, but you are establishing a new habit of being consistent. And so it does take time. And I can't tell you how long it'll take you. Someone was talking about how if you're going to start a podcast, you automatically just need to commit to 100 episodes. If you don't commit to 100 episodes of your podcast and put them out consistently, the likelihood of that podcast doing well is pretty low. And when they said that, it really put things into perspective for me. I was like, committing to 100 podcasts? So, and then if you're doing like a weekly podcast, that means you got to commit to 2 years of putting out that podcast on the same day or at the same rate for 2 years. And that is how the most successful podcasts, that's what they have in common. So when it comes to our platform, when it comes to building our business or social media, at minimum, you got to be showing up consistently for at least a year. That's what I'm gonna say. I ain't did no numbers. I ain't did no stats on it. This is just me coming from experience, but you need to be consistently showing up. Now, that does not necessarily mean that you have to post the same amount of content every week, but you have to have some type of level of consistency for at least a year to build your community, to establish yourself, to get people to recognize who you are. You got to be that you need that time. And so when you take like these really big breaks, or when you're super here or there when it comes to when you post, it's going to be a struggle and you're going to feel like you're not doing a good job because you're not giving yourself a fighting chance to establish something good. We talked about having a vision, knowing how to tell stories, and then we talked about having a consistency with your content, that your content is doing well, that you're moving in the right direction. Aside from all of those things, right? You have to decide that it is a priority for you to do this. Because if you treat it casually, especially in the beginning, the results are going to show. And so you're going to be really nonchalant about posting. You're going to be really nonchalant about doing the things you need to do for your business. You're going to be really nonchalant about making those connections that you need to make. It's going to be basically like it's going to be negotiable for you. And so you have to decide that it is a priority for you to build it. And so this is me coming to you from a perspective of having all of that time of making those mistakes and telling you what is necessary to avoid some of them. Hopefully that comes across in what I'm saying in my tone. That this is more so I'm letting you know now this is what you can do so that you don't have some of the same pitfalls. And so that's what the whole point of even being connected to a coach or a strategist or a mentor, having somebody who can show you the ropes. That's why. That's our heart for you. The good ones anyway. Our heart is that you avoid some of the time losses and the mistakes that we made so that you can start to see results at a different pace. So I think that I am going to come back and do a another breakdown of what a rebrand is. I'm going to break that down so that people can understand what that looks like and the time that it takes to go into a rebrand, because I was reading up on this topic. And did y'all know that for companies, especially like the bigger companies, like in bigger corporations, it takes years for them to rebrand? Did y'all know that? It literally takes them years. Like they create a plan, a strategy, and it takes them years to really implement this whole rebrand. Like a rebrand is not something that just happens overnight. It's not something that just happens in a couple of months, even. Like it takes years. So just imagine, this is like my little teaser for the next video. Imagine trying to rebrand yourself every year in a process that takes corporations years to accomplish. Yeah. Who has that much time? Who has that much time? And when you're rebranding, it is not a profitable time. Because you doing stuff, you shifting stuff around. The person or the people that you're trying to serve, they confused and trying to figure out what you doing. They trying to move with you. Like everybody's confused. Okay. And so that is why I really like caution people to consider what all goes into a rebrand and think about if it is absolutely necessary. Is it absolutely necessary? That's what we're going to be talking about in the next one. Yeah, I see we are at the hour. It was some good questions and good conversation. And I am going to see y'all in the next video.